You're earning more than you ever have. And you still check your balance nervously before a purchase. You still feel like one bad month could unravel something. You've told yourself that feeling would go away when the money got better. Didn't. And here's the part that's easy to miss. You're not just living with that feeling. You're funding it. Every raise you've gotten has quietly made the baseline more expensive and left the anxiety exactly where it was. That's not a money problem, but it's not what you think it is either. I'm Adam. I spend an unreasonable amount of time thinking about money and the quiet patterns that keep financially capable people stuck. And what I'm about to show you is why most people never figure this out, even the ones doing everything right on paper. Before we get into the mechanism, let's talk about what this actually looks like day to day. Because most financial content skips this part, and it's the part that makes the rest of it make sense. You get paid. For about 48 hours, maybe 72, you feel fine. The number in your account looks real. It looks like enough. Then, gradually, without a single dramatic event, that feeling evaporates. The bills come out. The automatic transfers run. The small purchases accumulate. And by week 2, you're back to the familiar low-grade tension. Checking your balance before you spend something. Doing quick mental math in a restaurant before you order. Not because you can't afford it, technically you can, but because something feels unresolved. Something feels like it could tip. Some people check their accounts compulsively, multiple times a day, not to learn anything new, just to confirm that nothing has gone wrong yet. Others go the opposite direction entirely. They avoid looking. The app sits on their phone unopened for weeks because opening it feels like it might make something real that they'd rather leave blurry. And then there's the guilt, the specific, strange guilt of making a reasonable purchase on a reasonable income and still feeling like you shouldn't have. Like you're getting away with something. Like the math is more fragile than it appears. This is what chronic financial anxiety actually feels like from the inside. Not panic. Not crisis. Just a persistent, quiet wrongness that no raise has managed to touch. So what's actually driving it? Most people assume the answer is obvious. Not enough coming in. So the prescription writes itself. Earn more, get the raise, wait for the number to climb high enough that the feeling finally stops. That logic is so clean and so intuitive that almost nobody questions it. And that's exactly why it keeps failing. Here's what actually happens when your paycheck goes up. Not what you plan to do with it. What actually happens. The apartment that felt fine starts feeling a little small. The car that was perfectly functional starts having problems at a convenient time. The meals you used to cook at home start feeling like a reasonable thing to skip. The subscriptions accumulate. The standards quietly shift. And none of this happens because you lost control. It happens because your brain recalibrates its sense of normal almost immediately after any change in circumstances. What felt like a luxury at $65,000 feels like a basic at $85,000. The baseline moves, and you move with it automatically without a single conscious decision to do so. By the time the recalibration is complete, your margin, the gap between what comes in and what's already spoken for, is almost exactly what it was before the raise. The anxiety didn't move because the margin didn't move. But here's what makes this particularly hard to see. Every single upgrade along the way felt responsible. That's the part nobody talks about. The nicer apartment wasn't impulsive. It was appropriate for your income level. The car upgrade wasn't reckless. The old one was genuinely becoming unreliable. The decision to eat out more wasn't laziness. It was a reasonable quality of life adjustment after years of grinding. Each choice, evaluated individually, makes complete sense. Each one feels like what a financially mature adult at your income level is supposed to do. Higher bills don't feel like a warning sign. They feel like evidence of progress. They feel like you've finally reached the level where these things are normal. And this is the quiet trap. Not that you made bad decisions, you didn't. The trap is that you followed the unspoken rules of income-appropriate living, and those rules systematically convert every raise into obligations before it ever becomes security. You didn't mess up. You followed the logic, and that's exactly why this happened. Smart people fall for this more than most. Because smart people are good at justifying individual decisions. And every individual decision in isolation is justifiable. It's only when you look at the whole picture that the pattern becomes visible. And by then, the commitments are already fixed. Before I show you what that picture looks like in practice, I want you to do a quick mental exercise. Think about your current monthly expenses. Now sort them into two categories. The first category, things that are genuinely optional next month. Not aspirationally optional, actually optional. You could cancel or pause them without a contract penalty, without a credit consequence, without a serious disruption to your life. The second category, everything else. The rent or mortgage, the car payments, the insurance, the subscriptions you've had so long they feel structural, the minimum payments that aren't optional in any real sense. For most people, when they do this honestly, the second category is enormous. And the first category, the things that could actually flex under pressure, is surprisingly small. That ratio is your real financial picture, not your income, not your savings rate on paper. The ratio between what's fixed and what's free. And for most people, that ratio has quietly gotten worse with every raise they've received. Now here's a comparison that should feel uncomfortable. Someone earning $130,000 a year, 2 car payments, a credit card balance being slowly managed, $2,500 in liquid savings. From the outside, this person looks stable, comfortable even. But run them through that exercise. How much is actually fixed versus free? Almost everything is fixed. The car payments aren't optional. The card minimum isn't optional. The $2,500 in savings covers maybe 3 weeks of real expenses. Ask this person what happens if they lose their job next month. Not theoretically but mechanically, step by step, what actually happens, and the answer unravels fast. The anxiety they feel isn't irrational. It's an accurate read of their actual situation. The income is real. The stability is not. Now take someone earning $80,000. $8,000 in liquid savings. No high-interest debt. Automatic transfers running in the background they set up 18 months ago and haven't thought about since. Run them through the same exercise. Their fixed expenses are lower. Their free expenses are higher. Their buffer is real. Ask them what happens if something goes wrong next month. And they have an answer. Not a perfect answer. A real one. $8,000 buys time. Time changes everything about how a crisis feels. That person sleeps differently. Not because they earn more, they earn less, but because their structure answers a question that the higher earner structure leaves completely open. If this still feels theoretical, that's the problem. Here's that question. This is the thing running underneath your financial life, whether you know it or not. I call it the background question. It sounds like this. If something goes wrong next month, what actually happens? Not in theory, in practice. Your specific accounts, your specific obligations, your specific numbers. If your income stopped tomorrow, how long before the fixed expenses start going unpaid? How long before something breaks in a way that can't be quietly managed? Most people have never sat with this question long enough to answer it clearly. Not because they're avoidant, but because the answer is uncomfortable and there's always something easier to think about. So they leave it unanswered. And they move on. And the question keeps running. Now here's why that matters more than most people realize. Your brain is not good at tolerating unresolved threats. Not bad news, unresolved news. There's actually a meaningful difference. If something is bad but known, your brain can adapt to it, can make a plan, can move forward. But when a threat is ambiguous, when the answer to what happens if this goes wrong is somewhere between probably fine and I'd rather not think about it, your brain treats that as an active, ongoing emergency, low-level, chronic, persistent. Think about what it feels like when your phone drops to 4% battery and you don't have a charger. It's not a crisis. But it's not nothing either. There's a specific cognitive irritation that comes from unresolved resource uncertainty. Your attention keeps returning to it. You can't fully focus on other things because some part of your mind is managing the open loop. That's what the background question does. It sits there, unresolved, consuming a portion of your mental bandwidth constantly. And no amount of income changes that. Because the question isn't about income. It's about certainty. Here's the part that surprises most people. Clarity, even uncomfortable clarity. calms the brain more than ambiguity does. Someone who knows they have 2 weeks of runway and a specific plan for what comes next will sleep better than someone who has a vague sense that they're probably fine but hasn't actually checked. The brain doesn't need the answer to be good. It needs the answer to exist. And right now, for most people, the background question just keeps running with no answer in sight. This is where the system quietly works against you. Every income increase gets absorbed by lifestyle before it ever becomes an answer to that question. The raise arrives. The brain registers a brief moment of relief. Then the commitments expand to meet the new income. And the background question picks right back up at the same volume from the same unresolved place it was in before. The relief wasn't real. It was just the delay between earning more and committing more. This doesn't slowly fix itself. Quietly gets harder. Every year you leave the background question unanswered, your lifestyle floor rises. Your fixed commitments grow. The amount of cushion you'd actually need to answer the question clearly gets larger, because your expenses have gotten larger, while the actual buffer stays roughly the same. Time doesn't make this easier. It makes it more expensive to fix. There's one more thing worth naming here, and it's the lie that ties all of this together. Most people aren't planning to fix this. They're waiting for their income to fix it for them. They genuinely believe that at some higher salary, the answer to the background question will finally appear. It won't. Income doesn't answer the question. Structure answers the question. And structure has to be built on purpose before the lifestyle adjusts, or the lifestyle will absorb every raise before the structure ever gets funded. The people who break this pattern share one behavior. They treat every income increase as pre-committed to structure before the lifestyle has a chance to claim it. Not through willpower, through predecision. They automate the transfer before they feel the raise, before they get used to having it, before their brain starts filing it under available. Someone moving from $70,000 to $90,000 who immediately redirects $600 a month into savings before touching the increase has a fundamentally different financial situation within 18 months. Not just more money, a real answer to the background question. And that answer is what changes the felt experience of financial security. Not the income, the answer. So here's what you're going to do tonight. Open your accounts. Find your liquid savings. Not a retirement account. Not an investment account. Cash that is available right now without a penalty or a waiting period. Take that number and divide it by your monthly expenses. Write down the result. That number is how many months you could absorb a real interruption. Specifically, not theoretically. If that number is under 2, your structure is fragile. Not your income, your structure. And every month you leave it there, the floor rises and the background question gets harder to answer. I'll deal with this later is not a plan. It's a choice to let the pattern keep running. And the pattern, left alone, does exactly what it's always done. It converts the next raise into the next set of obligations and leaves the question exactly where it is. If this video made you uncomfortable, you're exactly who it was for. The next raise will not fix this. You already know that. The only question now is whether you act on it tonight or wait for a salary that will quietly fail you the same way this one did.